I'll start that right now. Everybody should see a message about that. Well, good morning and welcome again. Pleasure to be with you here today. I was really hoping to get there in person this year, but we have multiple things happening on campus at the same time this morning. So apologize for that. There's nothing. It seems like a perfect morning to be out in Lincoln on the campus, but we'll join you in Zoom and be there in the spirit. Just a little bit, sort of our agenda today. And we do like this. I think this is, I don't know, at least year 5 or 6 that we've done this similar sort of presentation. I would very much like it to be interactive. So, please do. We have an agenda. We'll kind of get through some stuff and would love to hear from you all. To me, this is a prime opportunity to get those questions answered. We have some sort of stock questions that we know Carroll families like to ask. So we'll make sure we cover in the presentation sort of things we think you're going to ask, but we would love, this is one of my favorite opportunities to just get a group of parents from one school together to talk about Brimmer, to talk about the match. And if we do our jobs well, you will all leave with a better sense of who we are and whether or not it may or may not be an appropriate fit for your student. I think in some ways that's sometimes learning what's not a good fit is as valuable as learning what is. But at the very least, I think we'll cover some things that you might not be able to find on our website in quite the same depth or other places. And I'm sure some folks were here. I'm seeing some familiar names from open house this past weekend. We just came off a very productive and good event, but close to 900 people total between lower, middle, and upper over the course of a day. So we're still recovering from that. We'll start off with introductions here for the next few minutes. My name is Brian Beal. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management at Brimmer in May. I should probably update my title here on the slide deck. This is my 12th year at Brimmer, and I oversee admissions pre-K through 12, as well as the financial aid office here, and then work in close, we have sort of a close working relationship with our development and communications office. We have a 3-person advancement team and looking at the journey of an inquiry to alumni here at this school. So I'm very involved in those departments as well. I'm thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Karen, here today. I don't see you on screen at the moment, so I'm just talking into the void, Karen, but I'll scroll through my list here so I can feel like I'm talking to you. But Karen, do you want to say hello and just a little bit about you?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Karen Bernanke, Director of Academic Services in grades 6 through 12. I have a counterpart in the lower school. This is my 4th year at Brimmer and kind of run the academics that are kind of not specific to classroom. So I support students with learning differences, learning needs, families that are looking for resources to work with kids outside of school. I also direct the tutoring program which we'll talk about later. And I'm located in a very central spot in the school, in the library, where I have kind of eyes on a lot of kids and support students with learning differences, but also all kids that need kind of extra attention, basically.
And I'll
Welcome.
also mention, thank you, Karen. I would also mention that Karen works with us very closely in admissions on the screening process and in committee work, and can help us sort of best understand whether or not we can support a student and in what ways, whether or not some type of additional support such as tutoring would be recommended or required contractually if we were to move forward with an acceptance. So she's an invaluable resource to all of us and a member of the larger admissions team. So thank you, Karen, for joining us today. Excuse me. Josh Nudell, our head of upper schools, unfortunately giving a presentation at the exact same time on the future of AI in education to our board of visitors this morning. So he's unable to join us. He sends his regards. He's done this presentation with me for the last few years, with us for the last few years. So I'm going to play his part today. I'm sure I won't do it nearly as well as he would, but I'll do my best and then we'll move into questions. At 10:45, we have a student coming to join us. So regardless of where we are, whether we end with her, which we probably will, or whether she arrives early, we'll just sort of hop in because she's in the middle of class. But Paloma joined us in 9th grade this year as a new student. She's already made her mark in this community, knows pretty much everybody, including the head of school, very well at this point, and is one of our tour guides as well. So she's been an amazing addition. And we thought it'd be nice to have, in the past, we've had Carroll students who are seniors or juniors would have a little bit more perspective on that journey and sort of what Brimmer has been like. We thought this year it might be really nice to have a new ninth grader who was sort of sitting in a similar seat a year ago today, whose parents, I believe, joined this presentation, and we're learning about us and going through the same journey. So you'll enjoy hearing from her momentarily. Let's make sure I do that. Okay, great. So I'm going to hop in. Sorry, back up 1 second here. I just want to go. So this is a rough agenda. This will probably not take us quite as long, but I want to give you a little bit of a school program overview. Very broad support. Karen's going to sort of take the support slides and really cover that in depth later in the program, but I'll sort of do a cursory high level overview of sort of what types of support we offer as a school. But we're going to hop in really quick. This is, don't feel like you need to read this slide. I thought it would be helpful to understand sort of just a very basic overview of sort of who we are, what we offer, and how we do it. And I'll try to cover that in a succinct and clear way here for all of you to understand. But for those of you who don't know, and I imagine we have a wide variety of experience or knowledge in the group here about the school. Brimmer May is a pre-K through 12 all gender day school in Chestnut Hill. We have 407 students this year. We're usually around that 400 number, and bring students in as young as 4 and obviously through senior year. The school has been around since 1880. We actually were located in Beacon Hill when we started, ironically on Beaver Street, which is sort of interesting given our overlap with Beaver Country Day today, in the building that is currently the Park Street School. So long history in Boston, moved out here in the 30s, been here ever since. And draw from a very wide geographic net. All of the Metro West, from Acton, Sudbury to Weston, Wellesley, to South Shore, North Shore. A significant portion of our students are coming from the city of Boston. A third of our students get here in the upper school on the T each morning. So we are conveniently located right on the green line. I don't know, maybe 200 feet from campus at most, from the front door to the platform, maybe 300. Very quick. A little walkover. So a lot of our students are getting here on the T and coming from Brookline, coming from the city. So a nice, really wide range, usually 65 to 70 different towns represented annually. In terms of schedule, if you're doing a high school search, you've probably seen everything under the sun at this point in terms of how schools organize their day. Do they do the mod schedule? Do they do a 6-day schedule, a 7-day schedule? We have a convenient 5-day schedule. It kind of reminds me of my own high school experiences. We do have blocks that are both 50 and an hour long. So there's a little variety there throughout the course of the week. And your core classes meet 4 days a week. So the average student, we have 7 blocks in our schedule. The average student is taking 5 core classes. You see them sort of listed there: English, history, math, science, a world language. We'll talk about language waivers in a moment, should those be applicable. And then 1 to 2 elective classes per semester. So we're a semester program, 4 quarters, 2 semesters. We have mandatory classes in wellness, in college counseling, starting as a juniors. We have an arts requirement of 2 credits. 2 credits is the equivalent of 4 semester-long classes, and 1 credit in technology, which would be 2 courses. And all 9th graders take a course called Tech 9, which is a requirement during their first year. And I'll allow Karen to talk. Karen, I noticed we didn't have core in here. We should add that in the PowerPoint. We can talk about once we get on. But we do have a new class, which we're calling core, which Karen will go over in a little bit more depth, a little bit more of a study skills and prep class, to make sure that our students are sort of hitting the ground running and really have the resources they need to be successful. At the very sort of basic level in admissions, we are trying to answer that question. Do we think this student will be successful, and what might they need or require in order to be successful and to hit the ground running? And as we think about the courses that we offer, think about the structure of our day, that's at the core. That's really the question that we're trying to answer. What do kids need at each level, be it 9th or 12th? If anybody has formally inquired of our school already, you would have received our curriculum guide. It's also available online. we are truly a small school with a big program. The offerings are vast, and pretty incredible. There's not a day that goes by that I don't look at that guide and say, I wish I had that course in high school myself, be it a law course or a women's studies course or an innovation or STEAM, architecture. We truly offer some pretty remarkable courses that are a semester in length that cover a wide variety. So there's over 30 different courses in the arts alone. We have an entire curriculum within innovation and design, including fashion design, which is not something that you see in many places, as well as a CAD class, which is under architecture. So really a wide variety of courses offered for our students. I like to describe it as sort of a little bit more of a 9th and 10th is a little bit more prescribed. And by 11th and 12th, you get to really kind of the world's your oyster, and really get to decide how you want to schedule your week and your day. So 9th and 10th do have some more core requirements, but by the time you're 11th grade, you rarely would see two schedules that are similar, because it's really kids making it their own and trying to explore the curriculum to their, to tailor to their interests. I'm going to pause right there for a second because I covered a lot of academic information very quickly, just to sort of see if there's any questions about schedule, offerings, structure. Feel free to unmute or raise a hand, type something in.
What's the start and end time of the day?
Great question. So we're in a brand new schedule this year, which has been, and I'll show that momentarily. After lots of research over the last few years of sort of what would work well for us. But we start at 8 o'clock and we end, what are we now, 3? I'm still getting used to everything. We're off by 10 minutes. We used to be 7:50 to 3:15. Now we're 8 o'clock to 3:25. And then sports and activities will be after that, of course. Would be helpful for folks to see a visual schedule for the visual learners in the audience? Yeah, let me just give you 2 seconds here to stop sharing that, and we'll get over. It's just a schedule, a real. Whoops, sorry. Real 9th grader. Hang on 1 second. Okay, should be able to see that, I assume. And so this is, you'll see in that sort of green tealish color, it sort of breaks advise, sort of, I don't know how you describe those sort of set community times. We have an upper school meeting. All this used to be in the morning. I won't get into length, I won't go into depth of why we switched everything, but the day now starts with a class as opposed to a meeting. And we've pushed advisory in our morning meetings, community time, to the noon hour, lunch hour, excuse me, that has proven to be, I think, initially at least, quite successful. So you'll see, you can track each course here by color, and when that would sort of meet throughout the course of the week. Lunch there at 1 o'clock for all students. We have that morning break. Morning break's a great time to connect with a teacher, to grab a bite to eat. It's a time where a student can check their cell phone, and get a break in that way. Get outside, get some fresh air. And then we have our advisory, you see there, Wednesdays at 12:40, a nice 20-minute block. We each have roughly 6 advisees per faculty member here. And it looks like you have a question. I don't know if that's
Hi. Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm sorry if you touch base on this and I was zoning out or somewhere else.
No problem. Yeah.
Language, are there exemptions for language for?
There are. So, Karen is sort of tasked with and in charge of looking at accommodation plans for students, which she'll go into in a moment. But if that is an accommodation that a student has and not an uncommon one to see from a Carroll student, certainly it's something we can offer. It's always a decision that I'll preface it by saying many students who have accommodations choose to do, or have a waiver, excuse me, choose to take a language. There's a variety of reasons why somebody might do that. We always recommend a conversation with Karen, with our college guidance team, with the family, to really understand sort of what it would mean. We do have a 3-year requirement. So there's some different strategies, and it's 3 consecutive years, which means that, some students would do a language sophomore, junior, senior year, and try to just sort of have a little bit of a softer landing in the 9th grade. And then take on the additional class, and other students want to sort of go head first and do it right from the get-go. There are times where there's an add drop period. So if it's not going well, we can work with that. And
Great.
if a student had a language waiver, and we would give it a little bit more time before we made that decision whether to drop or not.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you.
It's a very common and good question. And it usually involves a conversation and some thought as opposed to just an immediate. But we have had several Carroll students over the years take languages and do very well.
Great.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that and just go back to.
Oh, Brian, I think we have
Yeah.
one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yes,
Hi,
Savannah.
yes. Hi.
Hi.
I was curious, I saw on the schedule study hall every day, block for study hall. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about what study hall is?
Right. So study halls in ninth grade. So students are placed in study halls in ninth grade, and then they turn into free periods starting in the 10th grade, where they have a lot more flexibility in terms of where they can be. It's not a proctored space the way, so at ninth grade, think of just a proctored classroom where the student reports. They can always sign out to meet with somebody in the learning center or their tutor, or they can meet with their advisor during that period. But that it's built in their schedule. A great time to get some work checked off for the evening. Most students learn fairly quickly how to utilize that time wisely and thoughtfully. They are granted those free periods, and then if their grades did not, if they weren't doing well, they would lose the free periods as a 10th grade and go back to study hall. Not as a sort of punishment necessarily, just as maybe the student needs a little bit more structure to their time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So I think we had one more. Do my best here to scroll through is there another question okay. Oh, there's one in the chat here, maybe. Language choices. Thank you. Language are French, Spanish, and Mandarin. And 3 courses and various levels of each, of course. So, not uncommon for somebody not to have had a language and start with language level 1. And they could go to advanced seminar, which is our sort of level 4 B for AP. All right, I'm just going to share again to get back to here. I sort of covered the arts. Our arts are both extracurricular as well as built in. So there's courses in the arts, and there's obviously we do a fall play, a winter musical, a spring musical, excuse me. So the way that I think about arts is they're both courses, academic courses, as well as extracurriculars. So opportunities, our choir just performed this morning. They have a fall concert, a winter concert, a holiday concert, spring concert. So there are times where they're doing that outside of the normal sort of class day, but our upper school choir meets as a class period as well. The last bullet point is sports there you'll see. We offer a variety fall, winter, and spring. Our requirement is that a student can either do 1 sport and 2 activities, or 2 seasons of a sport and then take a 3rd season off. You'll see those non-team sport options, and those are also considered activities. And so fitness runs throughout all 3 seasons, running clubs in the spring, rec tennis in the fall, yoga in the winter. And for folks who are not sort of team sport people, they can do that, but we do have a 1 team sport requirement. And of course, you could do 3 team sports if that were of interest to you. Any questions on the sports? Okay. Let's flip back here, sorry. All right, so I want to sort of cover our signature programs here, which some of you may have read about on our website. That's something that we talk passionately about and speak of often. We offer 3 diploma tracks in our high school. We have a creative arts diploma, a global studies diploma, and a STEAM diploma option. These are options, they're not requirements. And the way that we think of them as sort of a way for students to focus their studies in an area of interest or passion. You would end up literally getting a secondary diploma upon graduation. It's a 2 or 3 year requirement within each respective program. So you apply at the end of 9th grade or at the end of 10th grade. There is an application process, a GPA requirement to both get admitted and remain in the program. But it's really a way for students to sort of take a deep dive into an area of interest that they want to explore further. Lots of things that go into the decision-making process of that choice, and conversations with the program heads, parents, advisors. It's not something that students just sort of make casually. We encourage students to have lots of conversations and to sort of ascertain whether or not they think they'll be a good fit for each of those programs. About 40% of our students are in part of one of the three. So a significant percentage, but not a majority. And I think that's important to convey. It's not, you're not left out or the odd person out if you're not in one of the three. Almost every single class but one is offered, is open to anybody. So there's a creative arts diploma seminar, and that's the only sort of closed class. A couple within the STEAM program that give priority to STEAM diploma candidates, but other students can join as well. So if your student is more of a generalist and they want to sort of dabble in lots of different things, they can certainly do that. And that is a very common path for our kids. And then finally, our winter program is our international travel program, which we were delighted to bring back last year for the first time since before the pandemic. So students in our upper school travel internationally once every other year. The choice is usually 7 to 8 different options, and they're all tied to different pieces of our curriculum. And so you might see a service trip, you might see a Spanish language immersion trip, you might see a humanities trip. There's a sort of a common trip that most ninth graders go on, or mostly ninth graders, which follows the path of Shakespeare in England. So traveling throughout the country and seeing various places. You'll see the Leaning Tower of Pisa here on the right there. I get a kick out of this, an old advisee of mine. And just really a highlight for most students' experience here. They talk about it all the time when alumni return. That's one of the first things they ask about. Are you still doing winterim? And those trips happen right before March break, a week to 10 days of travel as a group, leading into the March vacation each year. And then really quickly, I'm just going to, at least in name, sort of highlight some of the support programs that we offer. And then Karen's going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into what those all look like. But we have a math lab and a writing center that is open to anybody and everybody. We have a peer tutoring program staffed with upperclassmen who are tutoring their peers and or younger students. There is an approval process for that. So they're not just sort of anybody becoming a peer tutor, but that is entirely student run. So an important part of Brimmer is student voice and student action. And so whether that's a student government, whether that's peer tutoring, ways for students to obtain leadership positions here across a variety of different platforms. We call our tutoring program a tutoring institute. That's been the name for as long as I've been here, 12 years. I'm not sure where it came from, but tutoring institute is what it's called. And that is a fee-based program, which Karen can talk more about, for students that need a little bit more than what our drop-in support offers. So a little bit more than the writing center, the math lab, maybe peer tutoring isn't the right path for you. Maybe it's executive functioning, maybe it's writing. We can do or math. We can do tutoring 2 or 3 days a week in one of those. And that happens during study hall blocks or free blocks and done on campus. So hopefully removing a little bit of the challenge for families of finding an outside tutor. A huge piece of our program, like most schools, is the advisor program. I mentioned, Karen, you're a middle school advisor, right?
Yes, I am.
Yes, yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm in an upper school. I have 6 advisees myself, but it's one of my favorite parts of the day and week is meeting with the kids. Sort of why I do what I do. But we work with the families, sort of the main contact from home and school. Karen and I are hopping on a Zoom with a family tomorrow that asked some questions. We said, let's just get together and I'll get on a Zoom together. Karen and I will get some feedback from the teachers and be able to talk with the family tomorrow and give a little bit of an update on how things are going. So very common to sort of for parents to check in with the advisor and get a feel for how things are going in and out of the classroom. And that's really a job that we take seriously as adults in the community and really enjoy getting to know the kids and figuring out ways that we can support students during their time here. We meet once a week as a group and then once a week individually. A whole lot of community building activities. I'm not going to go into the long list, but we have a director of student life in the upper school whose job it is to come up with activities, many of them during the week, many of them during the weekend, options for kids, whether it's outdoor education, whether it's pep rallies, and there's a Halloween thing coming up, there's semi-formal, there's prom. We have our orientation program on where we do first couple of days of the school year. We go to Cape Cod to a summer camp and do community building activities there. And then finally, Gatorades is our peer mentor. You see a picture there of a student wearing the mentor shirt. Gatorades, or alligator, is the mascot for Brimmer May, and so you'll see that there. And that's one of the ways that we sort of mentor our new students and onboard new families to the school. So they're an integral part of that experience. All right, before I turn things over to Karen, I'm just going to stop there for a second and see if there are questions. Scrolling. Okay, great. Oh, sorry, go back here for a second. All right, so Karen, I'm going to do this. We're going to sort of do this together, I think.
Yep.
Because as I was thinking about this slide, it sort of bleeds into, as you'll see there on the bottom. I'm sorry, not the wrong slide, Susie. 1 second. We're going to skip over that. Sorry. And what I just mentioned was sort of the high level overview. I would love Karen to sort of, talk about who does well. What I just talked about was sort of just structure of program as opposed to sort of the actual profile. So I'm going to let Karen take over, and then we're going to skip back to the student part and Paloma joins.
Sounds great. So, hi. So our learning support. So I think you probably get a sense, I hope, that we're very interactive with students. We're very engaging. We do a lot of community involvement, but also one-on-one. And so, again, like I said, from my location in the library, I see a lot of kids and I see a lot of things that are going on. And I'm also part of a lot of conversations with families and advisors and students about what they need in school to be more successful. So what we say to families who are, this question always comes up, like, so will my student do well at Brimmer? And especially from Carroll, we find that Carroll students really understand who they are as learners. And we think that's really important because when you come to a school which has all of these choices and all of these experiences, we want students to pick what's best for them. And sometimes they know better than we do. So we want students to be good self-advocates, to really know how to, and we teach this, but we also think it's really a good skill to come into with, is to know how to find a point person, a teacher that they trust, an advisor, someone that they can go to and ask questions, and start learning how to, we really like students to email their teachers when they're having questions or when they have concerns. We want students to find familiarity in the library space where they can meet with the math lab, which is the math specialist, and just check in, or go to the writing center and check in, so that we have so many resources that we offer, and we want students to really feel comfortable doing that. I know for everybody, it's hard, even our upcoming middle schoolers who have been in the school for a long time, getting to know that process is difficult for maybe a week. And then once they know how to reach all of their resources, it's really important. We think that students who build relationships with teachers and adults do really well at Brimmer, and take advantage of the resources that we have. So before I go to the next part, I'll kind of, the supports that we offer, I think of it as in tiers. So our tier 1 learning support is these drop-ins. So students can drop into the math lab. There are schedules that are available for everybody to see. The math lab's available, I don't know, 12 hours a week, something like that. So students during that free period that you notice, which is in 9th grade, a study hall, students can take that study hall and ask to come down and meet with the math specialist for math lab, or they can go to the humanities teacher to talk about writing during the writing center, or they could just come down what we call learning center, which means they're checking in with me. I have 2 students in here right now taking a test because it's better for them to take a test outside of the classroom. And so that students really find those resources. Our librarian, Ms. Seltzer, is also an amazing resource, who blends really well with all of these things that we do, and helps students, guides them with their reading choices, helps them with the research, can make suggestions with the teachers around curriculum. So those are all great resources. So that's our tier 1. And then our tier 2 would be, instead of these drop-ins, we might talk to a family at the beginning of the year and say, Edward struggles with getting things done on time. Time management's really hard. And so instead of sending him to his study halls each day, we're going to send him down to the library. It's going to be in his schedule that he's going to come to the learning support. He's going to come to the learning center. He's going to meet with Miss Bernanke, and they're going to go over his schedule for the week and make sure that he's not missing anything. So that's kind of a shared responsibility that we do together. And then the third tier is this external tier where we have tutors that come into the building. They're vetted by myself and other people at Brimmer, and they work very closely with our teachers. And as Brian said, it's a fee service, but it's definitely cheaper than going on the open market for a tutor. And the positive thing is that the tutors are here in the building. So during those periods, those study halls, students can work with a tutor one-on-one. It's scheduled for the whole semester. It's a semester-based or yearly annual-based relationship. So it's very consistent, and students can work together. So that's our level 3. So we just offer so much. And so I think that kids taking advantage of those things, and you'll hear from Paloma that that's something she did immediately. And that's why she's so successful. To answer the question around resources and supports that we offer, because you're all at Carroll, we know that you have neuropsychs, you have updated evaluations, and that's really great. And Brian can actually talk about that in the admissions process. But once the admission process comes to me, I look through those accommodation plans or through those neuropsychs, and I note things, not because I'm judging anybody or putting anybody in a hierarchy. It's just to see what the needs are and what we offer. And so we like to be very transparent about the resources that we have and the resources that we don't have. We have a lot. Sometimes from another student from another school, they might share an IEP, and I have to clarify that an IEP is in a public school, and maybe they have 3 times a week of a learning specialist pushed into their classroom. And I'll say, we don't do that. However, we do have these other things. But the traditional supports that we offer kids that are coming with a diagnosis of some kind, particularly ADHD or dyslexia, or the anxiety pieces coming up, 50% extended time is really common. We really try not to do 100% extended time for a number of reasons. That we have maybe 2 kids in the school that have that, but there's very, very specific to that student. We would offer access to computer for all written assignments. That would be in class and also on tests. Some students need the 4-function calculator. Many students with support are having access to a reference card for math and science. And that would mean that a little 4x4 card, a student would prepare a card, share it with the teacher, make sure that it's appropriate prior to the test, and then they could use that reference sheet for their test. We have a lot of access to audiobooks. We're using Learning Ally. And again, Miss Seltzer, the librarian, has access to all these books on Sora. So we really work well with kids to use those. And then we try to have students use graphic organizers, checklists, all sorts of things that are available. But as 9th graders, we're seeking them to find the ones that work best for them versus in elementary school where we're providing them. It's more of a kind of a shared responsibility that we work together to do that. Other accommodations will come across, and case by case, but those are kind of the general, really simple ones that we offer. Are there any questions there before we go on? Brian, I can't see, so maybe you can tell me if you see anybody. Looks like no.
Sorry, I was muted there. I'm looking as well. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
see
okay.
anything.
Nope,
People
that's
should
fine.
feel free to speak out, just unmute yourselves if you have a question. It looks like something's in the chat here. Karen, do you commonly provide visual information to supplement auditory?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and our teachers, I mean, that's really best practice in our classrooms. So teachers always have things on the board. So we use Canvas, which is our platform for learning. So everything is well spelled out in Canvas, in modules and lesson plans and weekly plans. So there's a lot of information that's available to students, and teachers walk them through that. Many of our teachers also record some lessons that are supplemental, or they may even record their classes, but not as much. It's more of a kind of an introduction to the next lesson, so students can go back to that. We allow students to take pictures of things that are on the board, and we also do offer access to peer notes and outlines, and so we work around all of those things. Yes.
Another question here. There's a hand up. I'm sorry, Kara.
Hi, thanks. I'm just curious, it sounds like you have a lot of different supports. What's the experience like for the students? Do they feel like they're getting special treatment, or is it more integrated into the classroom experience, I guess is the question.
No, that's a really good question. It's hard to, and when you come to visit Brimmer, you will see, and I hope you come, that our library space, which is where all of this happens, the tutors are here, the learning center's here, the math lab is here, everything is here. So kids come in and out all day long, whether they need services or not. They're coming to work in my office just because they want a quiet space, or they're meeting with the math lab sometimes there are kids in the math lab. You'll find them huddled together, working on problems together just because they're all in the same space and they all have a test tomorrow. So I would say absolutely not. There's no stigma, and you should ask, our guest speaker as well, because she'll tell you, I think the same thing, that it just flows. It's very natural. Yeah.
And Fernanda.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm curious on the application process. It says that applicants for upper school are required to take the SSAT, but that sometimes the educational evaluations may be accepted. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we do, that's something that we put in place during the pandemic and decided to keep for a variety of reasons. But yes, a student, if they have a neuropsych, we not only would like to see that, but sort of prefer that over an SSAT to really understand their learning style and how we might be able to support them while they're here. So we do waive the SSAT for a full neuropsych battery.
Great, thank you.
Andrew.
Yeah, hi. Karen, you mentioned that if a student needed additional assistance, such as a tutor, a fee-based tutor, I'm just curious, in your experience, do the Carroll children or the students that come from Carroll, do they find themselves using that service, or do you find that's a very rare occurrence and it's just sort of average across the students at Brimmer?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It really depends, and these conversations often happen. So when students are accepted, then I get a list of, I've seen everybody's application process as it goes along. So I might flag someone and say, you know what, I really want to talk to them about what they're planning for the summer, what they want the start of the year to look like. And so for some of those kids, we'll have a conversation and we'll say, let's start tutoring because I don't know, math is already, they're already anxious about math. So we know we have math lab, but let's put a math tutor in place at the beginning. And then if we want to pull it, we can pull it. So there's always flexibility. Some families decide that they've had a lot of tutoring, or they even have a tutor at home that they use, and they don't want to use that time. They'd rather use that study hall time to just get work done. It's case by case. I would say half of our students that come from Carroll use it and half don't. if that helps.
I'll just add in
Uh,
to that, through the admissions process. I can't think of a school that we work more closely with. There's a handful of schools in this area that we see a lot of kids from, and Carroll being a lot of applicants from, and Carroll being one of them. The placement team that you're working with knows us really well, and we work really closely with them. So if we have a question about, hey, we really like this kid, we're sort of leaning towards an accept. Do you think they might require this or that? We're able to sort of get some feedback that helps us in the decision-making process around where they're at currently, right? Because let's say they submitted the application in January and they were doing one thing at that point, and here it is, late February, they maybe have improved in something. So we're able to get that feedback then sort of in real time. So sometimes that's a very informed conversation that we have. Yeah.
And Paloma, I don't know if she's here yet, but when she speaks, she does use a tutor. She won't mind me saying. She's very happy with her tutor, so you could ask her about that too.
And
Yep, sorry,
Karen, I think you were just touching on that, just as a final to this. So that happens during the study hall period. It looked like the schedule that Brian put up earlier had 3 or 4 study hall periods during the week on it. So one of those periods, or whatever schedule was created for the student.
Exactly. It's my nightmare of the summer is doing that scheduling. I can't stand it, but it comes out in the end. So we have about, I would say, 40 students from middle school and upper school that are getting tutoring in the building. So it's a lot of kids, and there's a lot of puzzle pieces to put together, but somehow it all comes together. And yeah, that's when we offer it. Some students, once in a while you have a student that wants it in the end of the day, but most of them really like the fact that it's and the nice thing about it being during the day is that the tutors, again, kind of live here in the library, so they are interacting with the teachers on a regular basis. So that's really good for the kids.
Yep.
If that helps.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat here. I guess I'll direct this back to Carroll. It's, would Brimmer be considered light, moderate, or strong support in the Carroll placement framework? I believe it's light is how you refer to us, but I want to make sure that's accurate.
That's on the right track.
Okay. Somewhere between the light and moderate.
And we will say that within the bucket, if you will, of support,
Yeah.
each school has their, kind of flows within that differently. So I think a discussion with the secondary school advisor you're working with, and they can better explain it as it relates to your child. And that would be a great way to go.
Yep.
Thank
just
you
to
so much,
clarify
Brian.
too, the question on study halls, or the comment about study halls, the average 9th grader would have generally around 5 study halls. You could have more or less. Obviously, if you're not taking a language, you would have significantly more. So there are students that have as many as 8 in the course of their day, in their week. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll, that if you had 5 study halls, it would be every day. You could have 2 in one day and 0 in the next one. So great. And I think Paloma has joined us. Is that accurate? I just saw a little pop
saw
up
her
name.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. All right. Excellent. So you've made it somewhere in my office building here. Excellent. So I think, Karen, is there anything else that you wanted to cover before?
No, I just wanted to just drop in about the peer tutoring.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, I would say this year is the most dynamic and amazing peer tutoring program. We have 2 juniors that are running that program, and they've done a phenomenal job. So a lot of our middle schoolers and 9th graders are using that peer tutoring program, which it's just phenomenal. So it's another resource.
Great. All right. So without further ado, I think we'd love to pass things over to Paloma, who just joined us. Hi, Paloma. And I'm just going to put up a slide. This is the one that you saw. So hopefully this is not, can everybody see that right now? No. For some reason that's not sharing. That's strange. Let's see, try that again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Paloma, I would love for you just to talk a little bit about your transition to Brimmer. Just what was that like from spring, think back to last May to today?
Oh, for sure. So I thought my transition was going to be a little hectic. It ended up being the complete opposite. Miss Bernanke, like the second I got here, even like the last weeks of summer, I kind of asked to go on a Zoom call with her, and she kind of told me that I would have resources to tutoring, which I'm sure you guys already talked about, and also a math lab and a writing center. The math lab is kind of used for like if you're having trouble in math class or you want to get your homework done before you get home. And the writing center is like if you ever have trouble writing an essay or a paragraph, you can go there and they kind of help you with that. And after kind of feeling that, I felt much more secure about like arriving to this new school, and it definitely helped. It was so helpful. The staff is so kind in every single one of those areas, and you don't feel bad going there for help. You end up understanding, and everyone's so understanding of it.
Excellent. Do you want to talk about just a little bit about your schedule and sort of are you taking a language? Are you taking some electives? How has that been?
So for sure, I'm taking a language. I'm taking Spanish, but they offer 3 languages here at Brimmer. They offer Mandarin and French as well. And then out of like the 5 study halls I have a week, I decided to take 2 out so I could do 2 electives. I chose journalism, which at Brimmer is like really well known. They have a really good newspaper program. And I also chose to do painting, which I love so much. They really get you to think outside the box, just trying new projects all the time. And it just really like lets me be creative with it, which I think is awesome.
And Paloma, if I remember correctly, I think you walked away from our revisit day in April with several friends within about 4 hours. But if you want to talk a little bit about this sort of social, like onboarding, getting used, meeting new people, that maybe it's a camp or just sort of orientation. What was it like being new?
Oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be challenging. It wasn't. The Brimmer community is very small. So because of that, everyone wants to get to know you. And Brimmer offers like so many just like opportunities for you to get like to do that. For example, at like the beginning of the year, Brimmer goes to like a camp in New Hampshire, I believe, for 1 night, 2 days, and you just get to know all the people in your grade so well in activities. And in addition to that, like even after the camp, I didn't know some kids in the older grades, and everyone's just so welcoming. If I have a question, I can ask any of the students. Everyone just wants to get to know you. And in addition to like the electives, that like really helps you. Getting into electives with kids in like different grades gets to know like the whole Brimmer community, like yourself. Everyone's always like waving in the hallway. Everyone like the first day, so many people invited me to like sit with lunch. And even after the revisit day, like my tour guide, when I came to the school, she was like, "Oh my gosh, hi." Everyone is so sweet.
Thank you. And along those lines of sort of the peers, what about the faculty? You mentioned Ms. Bernanke and sort of, having a pretty quick connection with her. What about other folks in the community, coaches, advisors, or what is that relationship been like, and how is that similar or different from Carroll?
It's very similar, on which everyone's really understanding and super kind. I don't think I would say I have a teacher that I don't like. Like I like all my teachers, and I get excited to go to their classes, and they're very understanding about my accommodations and also what I need. And everyone's just so nice. For example, if I don't understand the homework from last night and I don't get the chance to see my tutor that week, I can like email my teacher being like, "Hey, do you mind if we can go over this?" And they're more than welcome to do so. It's very nice.
Great. Are you open to taking some questions from parents here?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right. So let's open the floor. I'm sure there might be some other questions for admissions or whatnot, but while we have Paloma, I thought we could at least stop sharing here and just open it up to some questions from a student perspective. There's one right here already in the chat. What is homework like? How much time do you spend each evening on homework? A good and common question.
Of course. So freshman year, it's they don't give, I would say the homework is a decent amount. It's a little bit more than Carroll, and Carroll really prepares you for this, I would say, which is something I really did not expect. And let's say one night you do have like a little bit more than an hour and a half of homework. Of course, you have your study halls and tutoring to do that. So it's always manageable.
Other
Hi,
questions?
Paloma. It's Mrs. McNally. I have a question. How are you?
Oh,
It's
good.
so
How
nice
are
to see
you?
Good. So I'm wondering for the parents, and maybe they would even be able to share it with their students, with their children when they get home today. Do you have any top tips for the families? You did, and your family did such a great job looking at all the schools and staying really open. Is there something you sort of remember about that process that was helpful? or even going into the application process?
Oh, for sure. So the main thing we did is like we would usually schedule tours before like interviews. And that in that sense, you kind of get like if you like the school, community was a very big thing for me. Because if you like the community, that means you can feel like you can learn in the community and you can feel like you can like fit in, which is something that I feel like a lot of Carroll kids would like look out for. And in addition, I would ask a lot of questions on the interview and touring process to kind of see what their curriculum is like, what their schedule is like, what accommodations do they offer? Because a lot of schools say they offer like so much, but like when it really comes down to it, you don't really know. And you also have to know like what works for you. What works for a family friend or what works for your sibling may not work for you, and that's something that's really important.
Okay, I'm just going to keep all of that in mind and use it today and next week when I talk to the kids. And then I was wondering, how's it going with your Carroll friends? Are you able to stay in touch? I know some of your friends are quite nearby and others have gone to boarding school. How's that working out?
Everyone stays in touch. I mean, I see my Carroll friend around once a week, but if I text. If you're close to them, then it's easy to stay in touch. And it's just so interesting to share about all our new schools and all the different things we do. It's really nice.
That's lovely. Well, we hope we get a chance to see you at Alumni Day. And thank you so much for being here today, taking time out of your schedule and sharing.
No, it's my pleasure. It was really such an honor to be
Say hi
here.
to your parents for me.
Oh, of course you do.
Other questions for Paloma? She could probably answer everything, any admissions questions at this point too. Gave her first solo tour yesterday, did an outstanding job. I already had an email from the family. So yes, Carroll.
I'm wondering, in your classes, are there a lot of tests that you have to study for, or is it more kind of projects that you're working on?
So Brimmer isn't a project-based school, though we do projects. Each teacher's learning style is very different. For example, in history, I'm doing a lot of writing, but in math, we kind of have like a weekly test. Though that is the case, it's not pressuring because the pressure at Brimmer, we try not to like put our students into pressure. We more like want them to feel good about themselves and making sure they understand. So the test really is more like getting to know where you are, less than like a bad grade or you're a bad student. It really, if anything, it's more just like see how your brain works and how it understands, which I think is really amazing because there's no pressure towards it.
Anything
Oh,
else?
I have a question. I have a question real
Yeah.
quick. Paloma, you mentioned that all the teachers are very different. So how do you navigate, because they are, so how did you navigate that? Learning how each teacher teaches and what their expectations are.
I would say like a good example for this would be my history. So in history class, which I wasn't used to at Carroll, is we do a lot of writing. So I'll write like 2 to 3 paragraphs for like a homework assignment. I would say like if I ever had trouble or if I feel like I wasn't doing good in my writing, I would go to my tutor. My tutor, the one-on-one time is so crucial. A lot of students at Carroll must know this about like LFA and tutoring. It's almost like that, except you're not learning something else. You're more focusing on yourself, which I think is like better in my opinion, because it's really a one-on-one and less of like, oh, it's time to write this paragraph about this book that does not relate to your curriculum. And it's really nice because it's not like you have to hire a tutor after school either. It's in your school day, meaning it doesn't take up from your sports or like getting home or just like your home life.
Carrie, did you have a question or is that an old raised hand? You're good. Okay, no worries either way. Perfect. And I just want to make sure we have a few minutes. I know we have an 11 o'clock stop, but I just want to make sure that we cover some admissions related pieces. And I neglected to mention that earlier. 9th grade is our biggest entry for the upper school. With that said, we also take 10th graders each year. So typically we bring in roughly 18 to 20 new 9th graders in a given year. And typically we bring in 3 to 6 10th graders. We do have a slightly smaller 9th grade than we've had in several years this current year. So that 10th grade number will look a little bit bigger next year, but probably not to exceed 8 or so coming into 10th grade. So, definitely entry points at each grade level. I know there are folks here probably in C9 program. And we do the diploma programs that I mentioned earlier, just important to note that you cannot enter those programs until 10th grade. So somebody coming in 10th grade does not lose out in any way. You apply at the end of the 9th grade year, and a new student joining the 10th grade can actually do that process when they that's so when they apply to the school. But if they are a new student in the spring, they can apply first thing and be admitted to those programs. The entire 9th grade class, we strive for 45. Generally, 2/3 of those students are coming up from our middle school, and then we replace anybody who's not returning and add slightly to the grade, bringing in that 20 or so new students. Great questions.
I have another question for
no, yeah.
Paloma, if that's okay. It's Mrs. Kometz. Hi,
Oh,
Paloma.
hi, Miss Kometz.
How are you? I'm curious, you seem to knew what you wanted as you were going through the process, but can you explain to families and parents about how understanding your learning profile and who you were as a learner, how that helped you as you were navigating the process, and perhaps what you were asking or thinking about while you were interviewing at Brimmer and the other schools?
That's actually a really good question, Miss Kometz. I would say the thing that was like crucial about Brimmer that I feel like I still see like right now as a student is you would definitely have to be like a very like extroverted and like how do I say this? Like just like if you need help, teachers won't come to you. It's like different from Carroll in that sense, where like if you're behind in class, teachers aren't going to check up on you. That is your job. So you have to be very self-expressive and you have to be on top of your work. You have to say to the teacher, hey, I need help. The teacher isn't going to come to you being like, can we have one-on-one time? You're going to have to go to the teacher, which is a very big thing. Also, you have to be prepared, I would say, to do more work, because even though the load isn't that big right now, it does add up in future years, like most high schools. And you have to be prepared to manage homework, at least do 2 of 3 sports. And if you want to join, well, if you join a diploma program in the 10th grade, that's extra work as well, which does pile up, which does lead to be much more than Carroll. So you also have to plan out that, and you have to like mark up your time and schedule. For example, like if I have a project that was assigned on Monday, but it's due Thursday, I would spend like half an hour each day kind of planning it out so that by the time I get to Thursday, I'm not stressed with other work that was like assigned on Tuesday instead of Monday. You have to be really time manageable and you have to be really extroverted, and yeah, I'll stay on top of your work.
Thank you, Paloma. I will say Paloma was very good at self-advocating and reaching out to her teachers at Carroll, and it clearly carried over to Brimmer.
Well, thank you. I am mindful of the time here, and as people have to jump to other things. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We love this opportunity. We love having a student join us. So Paloma, thank you to you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Please do, for all the parents out there, please do be in touch with further questions. Again, the placement team knows us very well, so they might be able to answer, or reach out directly to one of us, and we'll be happy to answer. We look forward to working with you throughout the process. There's lots of events, both virtual and in person, this fall. So if you've not yet been to campus, please do come and visit, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Brian, Karen,
very welcome.
Paloma. This was wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Very welcome. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.